Alright, so this is the part where we talk about JYP causing one of the members to have a mental breakdown, right? Oh, like this?
Nope.
How about now?
No.
No?
Nope.
That was absolutely not supposed to happen. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of The History of K-pop Season 1, where we take a journey through time to learn about some of the most significant first-generation idol groups in the K-pop industry. Well, we're also on the mission of keeping the intro nice and short. According to the script, that is. So we're gonna keep the intro nice and short. Pretty nice for a change, right? So far, we've talked about the everlasting history of some legendary first-generation K-pop idol groups, H.O.T and Skit. But of course, they're not the only ones. That's why we're back to introduce you guys to more of them. Today, we're taking a look at another popular first-generation idol group by the name of g.o.d. And no, not God, from Sidus HQ Entertainment. This agency is probably not quite familiar for a lot of us. What will be familiar to us, however, spoiler alert, is the all-time famous K-pop producer named JYP. Yes, you heard that right, who was deeply related to this first-generation idol group. In this episode, I'll give you a general overview of the group and an in-depth look at their first 3 members. But don't worry, we'll be taking a look at the other 2 members in the next episode, so stay tuned for that and more. Anyway, we have a lot to talk about today as usual. So without further ado, let's get right into it.
Let's go!
Alright, let's get started with g.o.d. As usual, I think we should start off with some general information about the group. g.o.d is a 5-member idol group that debuted in 1999, which makes them one of the later ones to join this amazing party. But that was no disadvantage for them, as they would eventually become one of the most popular groups of the early 2000s in Korea. So, who are the members, you might ask, right? Of course, we can't not talk about them, so let's take a look. The group is made up of Park Jun-hyung, aka Joon Park, Yoon Kye Sang, Danny An, Son Ho-young, and Kim Tae-woo. Oh, and the group's name? Can you guys guess what the group's name stands for? If you guys were trying to make a guess, this one's actually not too random, as it stands for Groove Overdose. If that made anyone confused, don't worry, because for the most of the time, in fact, all the time from now on, they're referred to as g.o.d, just like how we've been calling them until now. Interestingly, g.o.d is well known for being produced by Mr. JYP himself, as we mentioned just a short moment ago. But they were not actually signed with his agency until years after they debuted. For their first 5 albums, or most of the group's albums, g.o.d was contracted under Sidus HQ, and eventually signed a contract with JYP Entertainment starting from their 6th album in 2004 to 2005. And a year sounds awfully short to us. Unlike a lot of their first-generation idol group colleagues, g.o.d was known as the first idol group to take on a more youthful and friendly concept. This different approach allowed them to become adored as the very first nation's idol group, implying that they received love from all age groups, not just from people in their teens and 20s. And Satejian Boys has left the chat. As a matter of fact, g.o.d was even known by elderly people as the group who sang Mom Who Hates Jajangmyeon, which is a lyric from their debut song. Why is that a big deal, you might ask? As we mentioned before, the main target of idol groups from back then were specifically youth in their teens and 20s, and the way the idols were perceived by older adults from back then was not so positive. That's why g.o.d having their song recognized by elderly people can be considered as a remarkable thing for sure. I mean, elderly people don't know much, if anything, about the idols in today's generation too. So yeah, that's saying something. You might ask why the more youthful and friendly concept helped the group gain more popularity from the general public, right? Well, let me answer that. This concept stood out a lot, especially compared to how a lot of idols were hiding themselves from the public under mysticism, to the extent where they supposedly didn't even go to the bathroom in order to avoid encountering anyone at the broadcasting stations, even the employees. Though we question whether they really had to go as far as doing that. Oh, there is an interesting fact about g.o.d. The group was actually meant to be a co-ed group with 5 male members and 1 female member, but ultimately debuted as a 5-member male group. If you guys are curious, stay tuned for more pre-debut stories, because we'll be getting into that in a future episode. The title of this section seems a little different from previous episodes, right? Well, you're not wrong. Normally with this series, we spend more time discussing the group's collective history. But this time, we decided to shift things around a bit. How exciting! And focus more on each member's attributes and stories. Believe it or not, there are some pretty interesting stories to uncover about them. So, without further ado, let's get right into it.
Let's go!
First off, let's start off with Park Jun-hyung, the group's leader, lead rapper, and main dancer. He is Korean American and also goes by the name Joon Park in English. So let's call him Joon from now on. Although Joon is much more than just his age, he is known as the oldest active idol singer, having been born in 1969. Yes, I did say that correctly, which makes him the same age as YG, and older than Sateji and JYP. Lee from Finkel is known as the oldest first-generation girl group member, but she is 10 years younger than him, which really says something. If that didn't convey the message, how about the fact that he debuted in the year he was turning 30 years old? Not 20 years old, but 30 years old. This is very impressive, as very few idols, that is, barely any, have debuted in that age range. Others who come somewhat close include Irene from Red Velvet, who debuted at the age of 23, Kim Jin-woo from Winner, who also debuted at the age of 23, and Sojin from Girls' Day, who debuted at the age of 24. The only K-pop idol we found who probably had the closest age upon their debut was Kahi from After School, who debuted at the age of 28. But there is a little caveat to this, as Kai had 10 years of stage experience as a backup dancer before her debut, while Joon was literally new to the stage when he debuted. Adding on top of those, Joon is 9 years older than the next oldest member, which is this guy. And due to this age gap, all the other members called him Joon이 형님, a cuter way of saying older bro Joon. Interestingly, Joon's groupmate Danny is actually his much younger cousin, younger by 9 years to be exact. According to this exact clip, Joon also changed Danny's diapers. But we're not done yet with surprises. What's more shocking is that even JYP referred to Joon as his senior.
다시 해볼까?
What's more shocking is that even JYP referred to Joon as his senior by calling him Hyung, because Joon is older than JYP by 2 years, which makes him one of the few people with the privilege of not needing to speak to JYP formally. How nice, right? And this is probably the only case where a producer is speaking formally to a newly debuting singer. Joon is known as the most unique character in the group, which we'll get to soon. But he is also the member who has gone through the most struggles. Before the group debuted, Joon was often responsible for taking care of his group members and making sure they were fed. And yep, we really mean to say the word fed. He also received the most negative comments and was often targeted with hate due to being an older idol singer and for being too unique. You'll soon see why he was considered too unique back in those days.
Back in my day when I was a youth.
But things did not stay this way, fortunately, and he is now known as the most popular member. Funny how life works, right? But that didn't come along without a reason, as this is likely because of the funny and friendly image he has displayed on many TV shows. And Joon extended that to his YouTube channel called What's Up Man, which saw a massive success and has seemingly made quite a bit of impact on how Korean celebrities run YouTube channels. And many know him for his main catchphrase of BAM!
1, 2, 3, BAM! Woo!
Which I honestly cannot imitate, but apparently Mr. Researcher J can. So let's go check that out. When it comes to his start with g.o.d, Joon was actually cast by the CEO of Sidus HQ himself. He was promised with a debut around that time, which would have been quite appealing when it came to him accepting the casting offer. Or to anyone for that matter. But with the financial struggles that came with the 1997 IMF crisis once he had arrived in Korea, his debut date got postponed, and he had no other sources of income at that time. Needing to find a new source of income, he made use of the storyboard drawing skills he had learned in university and was hired by an advertising company. During his time there, and unlike what he got hired for, he ended up filming a commercial for OB Lager, a Korean beer company, which some of you guys may have heard of if you guys have ever visited Korea and tried their beer there. As far as I know, it's a pretty big company. And I think even Researcher J has a cooler bag from that company, as shown here. Anyway, this gave Sidus HQ the opportunity to see Joon's potential as an entertainer, and became a factor for his inclusion in g.o.d's debut. Because Joon had lived in America ever since he was quite young, he struggled with speaking Korean when g.o.d was promoting their debut song, with the exception of the song's lyrics, which we'd assume isn't too much to remember. Technically, he was born in Korea, but eventually lost his citizenship while living in the US. Today, many people assume that he is not originally from Korea by the way he speaks, even several years later, and even until now. Finally, he is known to occasionally use really old Korean words, which some native-born Korean people, including our lovely researcher Jay, would have never even heard of. This is likely because he lived with his grandmother for a long time. But yeah, that's all we know about Joon for now. And with that, let's move on to the next member.
Let's go!
Next up is Yoon Kye Sang, who is a sub-vocalist in g.o.d. He was actually assigned as a rapper up until the group's second album, but was assigned only vocal parts from the third album onward. His journey to becoming a g.o.d member actually started by attending an audition, which sounds quite normal, but at his father's suggestion. Finally, he had been preparing to become a rock band singer, but the audition he participated in was seeking dance singers. Well, that's awkward. When he first joined g.o.d as a trainee, so he did join as a dance singer trainee after all, the other members apparently said they thought he was the least attractive member after Kim Tae-woo, with factors like his acne-prone skin and other elements causing him to seem less fancy in their eyes. But let me just say here, I think you are still fancy no matter what your skin looks like. Ironically, once he debuted, he was often perceived as the best looking member by the public. See? You just never know. And I guess beauty is in the eye of the beholder. A funny anecdote about Kye Sang involves him fainting. Yes, he fainted, while being repeatedly scolded by during a recording session. Okay, I guess this isn't really funny, but hopefully he can laugh about it now. There are multiple sources that our lovely researcher Jay, not another lovely in the script again. I really need to talk to Jinho about this. Anyway, let's try that again. There are multiple sources that my researcher Jay, has found that talks about this story, but we're going to reference only one of them, for everyone's convenience.
Let's begin!
On a TV show called Yoon Kye Sang의 One Table that aired via Olive TV on November 17th, 2012, Danny mentioned that Kye Sang fainted at the time because he was extremely angry with himself for not being perfect during the recording. Not because JYP got mad at him during the recording session. Other members also claim that Kye Sang is a perfectionist and is stubbornly harsh with himself when things go wrong. As for if you know his recording style, which everyone who went through this has complained about, you can probably imagine the situation pretty easily. Thanks to that incident though, JYP never got mad at him again and started treating him more nicely. I mean, who wouldn't freak out when someone faints? Not only that, but when JYP bought the group ice cream, he bought 2 for Kye Sang, but 1 for the rest of them, according to Joon on the same TV show. Not sure if he was trying to bring up an example or complaining. But, oh well. Unfortunately, Kye Sang decided to leave g.o.d in 2004. We'll talk more about this in greater detail in the future episodes, since it requires a lot of explanation. But in short, Kye Sang revealed that he wanted to leave the entertainment industry for good during a broadcast of Yoon Kye Sang의 One Table, the same TV show we just mentioned. As to why, Danny revealed at a later date on another TV show called Radio Star, which aired on March 13th, 2013, that Kye Sang became fed up with the entertainment industry when the 2 agencies, Sidus HQ and JYP Entertainment, had conflicts over the members' contracts for over 2 years, and the fact that members were split up into 2 agencies as a result. As g.o.d members went through all of this, it also seems like Kye Sang had resentments and misunderstandings with some of his groupmates as well, and vice versa, which were only resolved several years later in 2012 through that TV show, Yoon Kye Sang의 One Table. After his departure from the group, he began promoting as an actor, but thankfully rejoined the group for g.o.d's 15th year anniversary project. Spoiler alert! This signified his official return to the group and the resuming of his career as a singer. I'm sure the next member that I'm going to introduce was certainly happy to hear that.
Let's go!
Let's go!
There is a member, funnily, who is proud of the fact that the line 어머님은 짜장면이 싫다고 하셔서 is his part in the debut song.
어머님은 짜장면이 싫다고 하셨어. 어머님은 짜장면이 싫다고 하셨어.
That member is Danny An, or Danny to make our life a bit easier here. He's the main rapper of g.o.d who happens to be Korean American, just like his cousin Joon. Before he joined g.o.d, Danny was actually part of a co-ed group with his groupmate Hyung, along with Shu from SES and Kim Hyun-suk from NRG. However, they ultimately never debuted as Shu left to join our good old SM Entertainment and Kim Hyun-suk joined NRG. And of course, Danny debuted as a part of g.o.d. As for his position in the group, Danny is known for his unique rapping style. And that's why he is the main rapper of the group, and also made appearances through several different TV shows, both in and out of g.o.d's promotions. Sadly, we couldn't find too much more information on Danny's individual attributes, so we apologize to those of you interested in hearing more about him. But if any of you guys know more about Danny, let us know what we might be missing in the comments down below. Unfortunately, we do have to talk about a heavier topic than usual, which is Danny getting wrapped up in a controversy regarding mandatory military service. Now, this is quite a difficult topic to discuss, so we will need some background information to help us out here. Danny happened to possess dual citizenship in South Korea and the United States upon his birth, as he was born in Seattle, US, to Korean parents. This was not a problem for him for a while, until a couple years into his career as a singer. There was a change in Korean military service laws that occurred in 2001, which affected people with citizenship of foreign countries, including dual citizenship. Since South Korea technically does not allow dual citizenship for most cases. Okay, so what was the actual change, you might ask? Well, this change in law mandated that people in this category who resided in Korea for more than 60 days and earned income to serve in the military. Those who were faced with this situation when this law changed were given the chance to give up foreign citizenship or to give up Korean citizenship, and the latter would involve leaving the country within 60 days upon notice. As for Danny, he chose to give up his Korean citizenship, meaning he became an American citizen who technically had to leave Korea. However, he was able to obtain a visa that allowed him to reside and work in Korea as a foreigner. But this also meant that he no longer needed to serve in the military. And this is what became a triggering point for a lot of people. Before we proceed any further, we need to give you guys some insight into how the general public's perspective on mandatory military service has changed over time. In the past, the general public did not really care about celebrities with foreign citizenship giving up Korean citizenship and not serving in the military. Surprising, right? In our opinion, the public was being quite generous, considering that people had to serve for 3 years in the military before 1995, much shorter than the 1.5 to 2 year period we're familiar with today. But that generosity was there only until a major scandal occurred involving a singer named Steve Yu, a celebrity who was probably more popular than some idol groups back in the day. I won't go into too much detail, although we've gone into a lot of detail so far, But simply putting it, this person avoided his military service in 2002 by obtaining US citizenship, despite promising publicly that he would be serving his military service. When this extremely popular celebrity broke his promise, the public was of course more than unhappy about the situation. And that's putting it very nicely. Ever since this scandal, the general public became much more attentive to whether celebrities were serving in the military properly. And this scrutiny extended to many other celebrities from that point onward. Oh, and what happened to Steve Yu? He is banned from entering Korea with an F4 visa. Anyway, let's get back to our g.o.d story. With how attentive the public was on male celebrities regarding their mandatory military service, and given that Danny's fellow groupmate Hyung's military service issue was also under public scrutiny, Danny was no exception to the extra and unwanted attention, unlike his other groupmate Joon. For context, Joon was born in Korea, but he lived in the US most of his life until he became an adult. Or when he returned to Korea, to be specific. And he automatically lost Korean citizenship due to acquiring US citizenship after immigrating to the US. Just to be clear, we said the word automatically, as Korea does not allow dual citizenship upon obtaining another citizenship, as mentioned previously. On top of that, in terms of culture and spoken language, Joon is considered to be more American than Korean even to this day, which is not too difficult to tell.
1, 2, 3, bam!
Therefore, the expectation to serve in the military was not as high for Joon, if any at all. And as for Danny, although he was born in the US, he lived the majority of his life in Korea, with his culture and mother tongue being Korean as well. Because of this, and as far as what researcher Jay found through his research, the general public ultimately criticized him for benefiting from most of the rights of being a Korean citizen without serving the duty of a Korean citizen. And that is as far as we're going to go into this. But if you guys are more curious about how military service has affected the past and current idol singers and other celebrities as well, please leave a comment down below and we can go even more in depth on this topic. And speaking of Hyung, he's the next member that I'll be introducing. Not on this episode, but on the next episode. And that brings us to the end of yet another episode of The History of K-pop Season 1.
We made it! Oh my! I made it!
Of course, we went through some of their general info and talked about these stories of the first 3 members in the group. Oh, and we can't forget about all the JYP memes we included. Like I mentioned in the intro, we'll be covering the other 2 members of the group in our next episode, in addition to g.o.d's pre-debut story. Trust me, it's a story that is sure to hit you right in the feels, so you don't want to miss it. But before we close off this episode, you know the drill. We want to leave you guys with a couple of questions. Did you guys find anything interesting about the 3 g.o.d members we introduced today? And did you guys expect to hear JYP's name show up in this episode? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And please leave any questions you have throughout the season on any particular video in the series, as we're planning to have a special review or Q&A episode at the end of this season. Oh, and please let us know what we might have missed in today's video, or if anything needs to be corrected. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please hit that subscribe button if you want to tune in next time, and remember to stay awkward. Bye!